to know why it is that in the immediate aftermath of September the 11th, 2001, Pew Research polls showed that nearly 60% of Americans, expressed favorable opinions of their Muslim neighbors. But 10 years later, an entire decade had passed, and nearly the same percent, 55%, said that, for instance, they would be uncomfortable with a woman wearing the veil, a mosque being built in their neighborhood.
The word jihad, what does it mean to you?
Well, I think of you know, the Islamics, the Muslims, the extreme Muslims.
The holy war against people who are not followers of Muhammad.
I guess holy war. Just like a lot of terrible images on CNN or MSNBC.
Something that could be religious, and it sounds like a powerful name, like somebody who possibly would probably be in control of something.
I just think of religion, Muslim religion.
It's like a religious mission.
The Middle East, and then the fight against terrorism.
Where would you say you got that interpretation from?
Oh, just general reading. You know, reading newspapers.
NPR?
I would say probably from what was seen on TV.
I usually watch CNN.
Would have been like the New York Times, maybe Huffington Post, MSNBC, that kind of thing.
The term jihad comes from the term jahada, which means simply to put an effort. So that terminology could be implemented on almost all that of what we do as Muslims. Anything you do could be under the term of jihad in that perspective.
When I think of the meaning of jihad, I take my first cues from the Quran. And in the Quran, the word jihad has the broadest possible meaning. I often define it as the struggle to live righteously.
There's the physical jihad, the emotional jihad, the mental jihad, and the spiritual jihad. And these four levels go up and upgrade in that term. And when we know that there was a tradition by the Prophet, a hadith, in which he came back after a battle and he said, we returned back from the minor jihad to the major jihad. The term jihad, which was physical in that battle, was described as the lowest, and then he mentioned of the highest level, which is going back and dealing with your normal daily life issues, which can go upgrade in that level of emotional, mental, and even spiritual.
If I could summarize what the My Jihad campaign is about, I would say that it's an effort to promote tolerance and acceptance for everyone and for Muslims in America, but also around the world, through education, to teach Muslims, both Muslims and non-Muslims, what jihad means, and then on a larger scale, what our religion is really about.
So people are talking about my jihad, their jihad. It's very personal. And then from there, we also do ads. And these ads go on buses, on billboards, in the future possibly on radio spots and TV ads. And the goal, again, is to engage people in a non-preachy manner where we can just carry out our reality through images and voices and go straight to their ears and eyes. I think it's very important for Muslims to tell their own narrative, because if they don't, others will tell it for them. Congressman Keith Ellison, the first elected Muslim congressman in the history of the United States Congress, said something very interesting. He said, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. So make sure you're part of the conversation. Otherwise, you'll be eaten up.
I think it has sometimes been the case that somebody is hesitant to say my name because they're worried that they're saying the other word. And they don't realize it's the same word. My name is Jihad Ali, and I am born and raised in Chicago. I'm Palestinian, and I've been living all of my life in Chicago. I work in the community, and my focus is primarily on youth programming and youth development. We are in a more diverse community, So our community also, our programmings also include Latinos and blacks. Jihad means struggle. That's how I define it. And as a child, nobody really filled me in on what my name meant. I knew why I was named Jihad, but I didn't know what the name meant. So I actually went by, unfortunately, the textbook definition, a holy war. Post 9/11, you don't want to say my name means a holy war, especially because that's not what jihad means.
Oh man, that's the dopest name ever. So it's always been a positive reaction, or at least curiosity, but never a negative one. I became Muslim on Wednesday, April 22nd, 1998. I read newspapers often, and anytime I would come across these stories with the term jihad used, it was in a negative connotation, with the holy war, violent, all those things that still persist today. And it rubbed me in such a wrong way. I did not want to keep such a name. I came to know this one brother who started this newsletter. And in the inaugural issue, on the front cover was a story or article entitled "The Significance of Jihad." And it was in this particular article where I actually learned what jihad meant. And it was so moving to really get a full understanding what the essence of jihad was. It moved me to tears. And I decided to keep the name for that reason. I've always felt, even before I became Muslim, my entire life has been some type of struggle or effort of striving to please God.
It was actually as a freshman in college is when 9/11 happened. I became very defensive of my name, and I wanted to reclaim it. So whereas all along I had been Gigi, suddenly I did not want to be Gigi anymore. I wanted to be Jihad, and I was proud of my name, and I knew what my name meant, and I wasn't going to allow the media to define my name. At that point, they were free to ask me questions if they wanted to. Usually when you ask somebody their name, there's not a follow-up question. As part of that, journey of being named Jihad post 9/11, I wrote a poem called Jihad. And it was about the meaning of jihad. And I remember one of the lines was, "I am not a holy war."
So our biggest challenge is, yes, to overcome this huge resistance towards Muslims and towards the word jihad that's been used so negatively and portrayed so negatively.
Well, I think when it comes to Islamophobia, or the misunderstanding of Islam, or even worse, the hatred of Islam, you're talking about two groups. One is a group that doesn't know much about Islam and is truly fearful because of their ignorance. And the best way to deal with that is education and conversation and dialogue. But then you also have a second group that needs to be differentiated from the first. These are individuals with a clear agenda. They know what they're doing. They're out to score points. They're out to make money, to rack up notoriety or fame, the way they see it. Celebrity type status, obviously in the gutter, but it sells books. It gets website hits. It helps them make money. And this campaign is very much about taking back that discourse from the extremist fringe, which tends to have dominated the discourse so far in the public sphere, specifically the media, if not academia. And so as a result, our slogan is very simple, but very telling: taking back Islam from Muslim and anti-Muslim extremists alike. The anti-Muslim extremist groups, they come from opposite ends of the spectrum, but they agree on the same conclusions. Both believe Islam is at war with the West. Both believe that jihad is terrorism or a sort of holy war in which innocents are targeted and killed. Both believe that the West doesn't like Islam, or Islam doesn't like the West. Very simplistic, very unintelligent, dumbed down rhetoric. And our campaign, us being the moderate mainstream stuck in the middle between these two fringes, we're taking back the helm of the conversation with our own voice.
If you're the kind of people, our fellow Americans, who think in order to understand what Catholics believe, you ought to listen to what Catholics are saying, in order to understand what Jews believe, you ought to listen to what Jews are saying, then you must believe, in order to understand what Muslims believe, you should listen to what Muslims are saying. And mainstream Muslims, your Muslim neighbors, your Muslim friends.
My personal jihad is standing up to bullies, and it's fighting bigotry. And that's what I do on a daily basis here at CAIR Chicago.
Another jihad, or my struggle, lifelong struggle, is that I don't want my kids, my challenge is that I don't want my kids to grow up in an environment where they're immediately rendered suspect for no act of their doing. And I also want them to be proud of what they believe in and feel empowered to express themselves.
My ultimate jihad is being the best jihad that I could be. The one jihad that was for the actual ad campaign, where I modeled with one of my friends and colleagues from a Jewish organization, is that my jihad is to work across the aisle. I can't just work with the Christian community or other communities if I cannot necessarily see myself working with the Jewish community.
My personal jihad would be going through the journey of knowledge, learning about God.
My jihad is to be a better Christian by learning from Muslims how to better serve God and other people.
My daughter's name is Samah, and that's not an easy name to pronounce for many people. So that's going to be a struggle for her. And part of my jihad is helping her to get through her own struggles, growing up as an Arab Muslim woman in the United States without feeling some of the things that we felt growing up.